Wicked. Brrr. Here we are with Arion Light. How are you, brother?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Likewise. It's great these episodes, like doing these podcasts. It's like I hardly know this person, so I'm going to get to know them live. So I've had that happen a couple of times, a few times actually during these podcasts, and it's a lot of amazing magic has happened. Like from that, you're like, wow, I've just met this person, we just hit it off, and yeah, it's been quite an amazing process. So
Absolutely.
thanks for joining
That's
us.
the great mystery of it, hey, is what will our meeting in this moment create? Not just me but bringing a bunch of rehearsed material or you bringing a bunch of rehearsed questions, but what will this produce, and then how will that be of use to anyone else is the great mystery, but I love it.
The great mystery. Tell us more about that. The great mystery. That's something that.
Oh, that's a great place to start. I guess for me, I run something called the Essence School, which is all about the great mystery, really, all about the truth beyond what we see with our human senses. So that we have that sense of the mind, the ego, whatever we call it, the thoughts, the feelings that have us perceive what we think is happening, what we perceive is the reality. And then, as we all know, at some point, whether it's just a few times or whether we've had that a lot in our life, there's that life beyond that. There's that, and everyone has their different sort of paradigms around what that is, and different words and different frameworks or whatever. But fundamentally, it's there. The mystery, what Yoda calls the force. This life force beyond what can be seen, and that my passion is making really direct embodied contact with that.
How long has that
and
been
so
your
when
passion
you say
for?
about the great mystery, sorry,
How long has that been your passion for?
what was that?
How long you been into that for?
Look, I was a long time. I was into spirituality from about 18 or 19. I had a sense. I met a guy who just got out of jail when I was hitchhiking around Australia, and we ended up just hitchhiking together, and he started telling me stories about meditation and things. We just sat on the beach and we breathed and listened to the universe, and it was like a whole world opened up for me, and I had a lot of very intense spiritual experiences when I was young. Pretty much thought I was enlightened, and then discovered that I'd tasted the truth of that love that never ends. But really what the sort of the core story for me that shapes my life and answers that first question about the great mystery for me is that I've been teaching for about 5 years, and had a whole lot of different programs running, and then my wife got diagnosed with cancer, so 8 years ago. And just did my best to raise my son and take care of her. And what I found in that time was that the opposite happened than what I thought would have. I thought I was pretty sorted sort of guy who, could deal with crisis well. And actually I was shit. And I became hard and frozen and resistant and angry at life. And all my new age theories that I'd been teaching for years and impressing people with and feeding my family with, they just fell short. They sort of, the life came and really tested them. They just went and froze and didn't work.
You really think
And I had all those the right things to say from the books, and be here now and love one another, and all the right things. I knew it all, but actually, when real life hit me, I just was laid on the mat and couldn't get up. And after 6 months of that, I finally broke. I finally failed at life. I finally collapsed on the floor and just went, I can't do this. I can't be the man that life wants me to be. I'm supposed to be loving and positive and spiritual and kind, as well as independent, as well as focused, as well as, there were so many fucking rules. And I couldn't even love my dying wife and take care of my young boy who was trying to make sense of what happened with his mother. And so I broke. And in that breaking, it started off with a sense of like utter failure. Like, oh my God, I'm a failure, but in the breaking, there was something else there. There was this love or presence or whatever it was that just started to sort of, I wasn't really speaking words, but I can only use words to describe it. It just started to say, hey, I love you. I've got you. It's okay. And I would argue with it and go, no, I'm not. Look at me. Look at how much I'm fucking.
Look around.
Yeah. And what happened was that that love just kept letting me break into its arms until life started to move again through me, and it was fucking, I'm swearing a lot today, but I presume you're
They're
um,
absolutely fine, yeah.
yeah, that there was this opening to life, to a love that, again, I'd read about, but actually here it was saying, I love you no matter what. And it's okay. And each day, at the end of the day, after doing, taking her to appointments and doing medicines and taking care of him and managing life, I would collapse at the end of each day, and I'd just get better at breaking and collapsing and entering into what I now call the great mystery, where I'm not here with all my ideas, but I'm dying. It really was a death for me as well. And in that space, I started to feel with this love that wasn't mine. It wasn't my sort of thing that I was working on through my divine practices or whatever. It was just the truth of love that came through. And it started off just holding me and helping life be less terrible. But over time, it started to really fill me. And my wife, in her dying months, also really opened to that. And the two of us opened to this, the most exquisite love that I ever experienced in this earthly life. And as she got closer to death, we were in rapturous bliss with the truth, with in her words, the love that never ends, or the love that has no name, And when she passed, she actually chose to pass in my arms.
Wow.
One morning, just as the kookaburras were singing, and it was, the most incredible, exquisite love, the most boundless, eternal, beyond words love or truth or presence or what I call essence, but whatever we call it. And I remember at that time, and ever since, there's been like, shit, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This was never on my vision board. This is never what I wanted to happen in my life. And yet here I am, closer to the truth of who I am than I've ever been. And it really threw my sort of notion of being a man I've got to become this better man. I've got to get from this man I am to that better man over there. And it really broke that. It's like, fuck that. It's here already. The beauty of myself and love is here already. And that's become the foundation for me, is to keep dying into that. And even as I've healed from the grief and started to really get into life again, my boy's 9.5 now, life's rich and full. And but still that practice of dying into the mystery of bringing everything I think I am, I think I know, I think I've worked out, and letting it all break, and then listening for what's beyond that is my life now. That's where the Essence School comes from. That's where the Essence Living as Essence programs that I run come from, is from that devotion to keep breaking into the mystery and then let that mystery move through us.
So is that a daily practice, a nightly practice? You mentioned at the end of the day, that's something that it's a practical practice that you engage in, or is it just an ongoing moment to moment sort of philosophy and principle?
In the end, it's a moment by moment thing for me now. So it's certainly, I'll take time regularly to break, to die. I live by the river, Melbourne. I go and spend time by the river and just melt into that, or I just, whatever, got a spa here out on my property and go and sit in that, or just stop. So there's time. I do take time aside, but the truth of it for me now isn't a practice. It's just the truth. And if I take a breath, in fact, let me offer a practice that my core practice is just that: breathing in, filling with life, and then breathing out, emptying it all until I cease to exist. That's it. How I describe that is 15 years of doing this work, and that my whole work is in that one breath. Just breathing in, learning to receive it all, drink in all the beauty and the pain of life, and then breathe out and empty it all until I'm nothing again. That's my practice.
Yeah, it's interesting that this keeps coming back to the breath, isn't it? It's like there's so many practices and pointers back to the breath. It's like,
oh my God, anyone who's worked with me for a while knows I'm like almost crazy about the breath. It's like I can
relate.
Jedis and their lightsabers or something. It's like this. It's just, the words that I get when I'm breathing and making connection to breath is it's the doorway between the form and the formless.
Mm-hmm.
So the breath is that thing that we both have conscious control over, but it also occurs without conscious control, and I've been blessed enough to be there with my son's first breath. Like I literally watched him take his first breath. And I was there for my wife's last breath. You know, I really, they live in me as these moments of, wow, there's the breath. Like if there's anything that defines life, this human experience, it's the presence of breath, rising and falling, rising and falling. And so, yeah, the whole core of my program is around breath, and working with what I call the yin breath, which is the slow, deep, you know, coming home breath, and the yang breath, which is more the more being able to direct energy and wake energy up and challenge things and push through things, and the two of them make up my dance steps, you know.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's something I've had the pleasure of witnessing as well. When I was younger, I witnessed my two baby brothers being born as well, and you know, witnessing that first breath when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, respectively. And then I had my godmother. I was bedside as she took her last breath, and I witnessed her leave her body, and like I was half in a half dream, half awake, half sleep state, and she was communicating with me through a dream / awake sort of moment, and I saw her leave her body and leave some like these tattoos, and she was leaving these tattoos on her body that were like symbols, and she was just about communicating with me with symbol, and witnessing her leave the body, and then again my own children as well, witnessing them take the first breath. It's just such like you said, it just, wow, that's injected with life immediately, like their own life. They take that first breath from this plane, they're not relying on the mother.
Sometimes I come across work that's got a lot of practices and principles and stuff in it, and sometimes I just want to rip them all up and go like right life, normal earthly life here, breathing, touching, speaking. Like there's so much wild mystery in there. And they are like, these things that are normal, that are just so boring, so everyday. It's like the gold's right there in them, you know. City of it. So yes, God, we could do 1,000 podcasts on breath if you ever want to do it, because I haven't actually met someone who's so clearly articulated being there for the first breath and the last breath as well. And
it's a beautiful thing. And
portal.
For you, so for people coming to you said earlier that you've been working with thousands of people, you love that face-to-face interaction. For you, is there a key, or like, I know we've probably already mentioned it, coming back to the breath, but is there any other ideas that you keep finding yourself repeating? You know, it's like people come with, it could be a multitude of issues, but then you go, well, if you just try this on for size, see how you go with that. Are there some things that you find yourself keep on?
Yeah, there's lots of that. I mean, I think the core for me is this notion of essence rather than effort. So this sense that the core sort of understanding for a lot of us who feel this calling to become more is that we think we're the one doing that becoming of the more. So we then try and heal our chakras, or we try and clear our mums and dads' issues, or we try and do what we think we need to do to become the person we think we need to be. And while there's obviously a layer of truth to that, my passion, where my work is, and why I keep talking about essence, is this sense of, I really believe in the evolutionary power of that essential life force in us, in the same way that, you know, those babies of yours, your children of yours that were born, like the body knows how to do that. We don't have to go and work out how to do that. There's some bizarre knowledge that knows how to create a baby and birth it, and all like that knowledge that's there inherent in human life is what I'm passionate about. And so making contact with that and learning to melt the identity or the construct around who I think I am and who I think I need to be, and actually just stop in this moment and to slow down and rest into that place, that remembering. And that for a long time I thought that remembering was just like quite a spiritual place. It was like, you know, for the yoga mat or after great sex or walking in nature or whatever. And then you've got to get on with life. But what I'm passionate about now, and where most of the people who work with me are passionate, is that they've had that strong sense of spiritual connection or connection to essence or life force. And then there's this calling comes at a certain point of that, of, I want to live from there. You know, I don't want to just go there, you know, in my morning practice.
Do it on the mat. do it with
I
the
want to
candle in
witness
front
that.
of me, or seated, have to be seated in my particular spot.
Exactly. Yeah, I can only connect there when the right incense is burning or whatever. And that actually that this essence, or this, you know, divinity, or what my favorite word for it at the moment is the beloved, that when this beloved is really moving through us, when I'm moved to be connected to that, it can move through and parent my children, you know. In fact, that was the bit of the story earlier I'd share, was that when this love really started to move through me after my wife had been diagnosed and finally I broke, I watched the love not just move in me and love me and hold me, but I actually watched it move through and parent my boy. I watched it finally love him like I had been unable to. I watched it hold her in a way I'd been unable to. And so that miracle is really the miracle that I devote my life to, that this essence isn't just a still spiritual place that sounds like Om, that just, you know, everything stops. It's also a movement that can move through us and shape reality and earn money, make a difference in the world. And that's my real passion, is serving those, what I call warriors of love, you know, people who have touched the divinity and don't just want to go there as a part-time thing. They want to live and create from there in everything. And my mission is to help those people embody and get the skills to really do that in a really real way. You know?
Mm-hmm. Is there some common issues that come up with that stop people from doing that? Maybe people come to you and they go, I get it, I understand it, but I just can't embody it, or I really know what you're saying, but I can't quite put the pieces together. Are there some common sort of issues and challenges that people come with, and what do you say to that?
Yeah, there's one common issue, and that's that we think the thoughts that we have are actually who we are, you know, so that we come and we there's whatever's happened in the past is what's happened. But then I think, I've got to change those thoughts. I've got to become this other person, you know. And so there's this mind, and I don't want to diss the mind. I think when the mind awakens, it's this luminous genius. So I don't want to join the mind's bad and wrong, but the unconscious mind, or the rigid human mind, it really does believe that what it thinks is real. You know, so if I walk out and I see a tree and my mind goes, there's a gum tree, and it thinks that those words that it says are actually what's there. But actually, if I drop that label and I just reach out and touch the tree, there's something else. I don't know what it is. But it's a miracle. Yeah, it's some divine, wild intelligence that's growing and moving and evolving, and it's so much more than the little label of gum tree. And even if I'm a horticulturalist, I can explain the whole process that it moves from seed to tree to whatever. It's not it. It's not what it truly is. And so, yeah, in terms of that question about what's the biggest block, is that sense of the label that we put on ourselves that's in the way of what we are right now, you know, just in this moment, broken, messed up, beautiful, our chakras aren't aligned, you know, even in this moment, that beloved is here whispering to us, singing to us. And so I have, one of the things I work with a lot with people is who've got a lot of trauma from their past, and they've done a certain level of work with it. I don't work with people right at the edge of trauma, but they've done a certain amount of work and they go, I don't want to be defined by it anymore. And so there's this moment when we stop trying to fix or understand who we are based on the trauma, and we go beyond that to the essence, to the flow of life, often through the cracks that the trauma made, and we access the flow of life. And that's almost the most passionate for me, when we realize that the parts of us that are the most broken, we've been trying to fix forever, we've done 100 workshops to try and fix, and we realize, there's actually nothing wrong with them. They're actually places that open to more life force when we really connect with them. You know, in fact, I remember there was a guy, I ran a retreat a year ago, and he arrived, and quite early on he was sharing that he felt broken. His words was, I'm a broken man. And that he actually tried to take his life several times, and was, you know, he'd moved past that intense part of the trauma, but was still quite shaky about it. And the practice in the first half of the retreat was around acceptance. And so by the end of the first day, he was really going, I accept, I love my brokenness, you know, and he was in a real place of love for his humanity and his brokenness. And then the next day, when we look more at awakening life force, he was actually 2 feet on the earth. I think he was roaring actually and going, I'm broken. I love it. And he was this very thing that he'd gone from being ashamed of and something that he tried to heal to being the very place where the most sacred life was coming through from him, And so that's what I love witnessing in people, when we realize that the things that we're trying to fix and get away from are actually just as sacred as the things on our vision board.
100%. So for you, there was a piece. You mentioned that after your wife passed and you had this experience with the essence moving through, and that became really an essential part of your practice and what you share. And so prior to that, what were you espousing? What were you all about? And you said you were working with people, and what was the shift that you made?
Yeah, look, it's funny because in the content it wasn't that different. I'd talk about essence in my work. But the thing was, and this is, really common, is that I was still trying to do it. So fundamentally, I still believed in this notion that the who I wasn't enough, and there was a better me. And if I did these practices, I would get to the better me. And so I helped other people get away from this self to the other self, to be a better person. And even though on some levels I still do that people still come and share the breakthroughs they have and how their relationships are better or their finances, like on an external level, you'd say it's the same thing. But the deeper practice is nothing to do with that. It's just coming home to the love that never ends. And then the love does things with our life and makes our life look better. And it often, sometimes, not always, sometimes it pulls our life apart and breaks the things. But that this notion, like for me, there's a really deep rest in the center of my soul now, in the center of my physical body, a place of really deep rest and fullness. And that I now understand my job is just to be in that fullness and then sit with that and allow others to come into that fullness with me, and then they, from their own connection to the fullness, they take that into their life, so that the biggest shift, I guess, in answer to your question, is from effort to nothing.
Well, there's this concept of Wuwei, which is a Chinese principle of effortless ease or of non-doing, and it's
Yes.
constantly what I keep bringing people back to in when we're doing qigong sessions or we're doing neigong and teaching meditation, is there's no effort, there's no trying, we just have to rest into what is here now and pay attention.
And the unfathomable beauty of that is so, like, to the self that's been efforting, that's got all those books on its bookshelf and done all those workshops and had all those spiritual realizations and has amassed all of this sort of spiritual wealth with which to define our spiritual path. When we really have those moments when we truly see effortlessness, like, oh my God, it's all, I don't need any of it. The bookshelf comes crashing over. It's like, and we're back to where we started in this about the mystery. And it's just like, oh my God, I'm nothing. I know nothing. And thank God. Because if I'm full where I am, then I just don't have to try and be somewhere else. And then yet still there is a movement to something else. There is a growth, like the tree, sapling becomes a tree. But I'm not the one who thinks he has to do that. I am the one in the current of life witnessing.
And yeah, it's a beautiful thing, that noticing that, like, what keeps coming back from hearing what you're saying is like, it's a paying attention. It is a noticing. It is a being aware of, and turning on that faculty, which allows us to notice something. Or it's like, because easily you can go about life and not even realize that this is happening all along. And I feel that engaging some of these practices of just taking a moment, like the breath, helps. Because it's like, all right, my mind has to be focused right here on the breath, and when you release into what is, it's like stopping this kind of constant looking for out something, and it's like, just receiving the something rather than actually necessarily seeking it out. It's like, it's just like allowing it to be received, and it's finding that fine line of being the seeker and then being the sought, or being the seer and the seen. It's like, it's this kind of This
We're really
non-dual.
going to have to road now.
This
We'll
non-dual.
hear the sound of one hand clapping soon.
Excellent. And what is exciting you going forward? Like, this is a question I really like to ask people is, go forward, I don't know, 20, 50, 100 years and paint the kind of future that you would love to be involved in.
Well, look, the honest answer to that is that I don't believe in the future anymore. It doesn't exist. My devotion is to come, and it doesn't mean there's not goals, and I'll even share about them in a minute, but at the core of me, it's like when I ask that question, I just get this big, like, fat Buddha sort of smile, or Yoda sort of just like, just it doesn't exist. It's like there really is only this moment, and I know we all know that as a principle, be here now, and all of that. But really, if the future's not real, then all those hopes and dreams that I have for the future actually can come alive in this moment. And I'm not sure if I'm able to express that in a way that's really lands or makes sense, but part of the practice in the essence work that I do is around working with vision, and that finding whatever visions we're called to, whether that's a life partner or a utopian community or $1 million or a successful business, and working to find the essence of those visions so fully that they come alive in the moment, and that's where real transformation occurs, real awakening occurs, is when a vision isn't just this thing that I'm trying to get towards, but actually becomes a life that's awakened right now. So I had a guy who did that, just to give a really grounded example of it. There's a guy who really wanted a utopian community. You're sure there's a lot of people in your listeners that have that vision for utopian community. We live and work on the land and, all of that. And then when he did this sort of vision to essence work, what he found was that he was actually a long way away from that. Like, he was going with meetings and trying to make it happen, but actually was living in a little house on a suburban street in Melbourne. And so when he brought that essence back, so rather than all this striving and effort and trying to get to the vision out there, and he brought it right in and went, how does this vision want to live through me now? Then what he did was he went to his local street and went and knocked on everyone's doors and organised a Christmas party. And met all these people from different cultures who weren't in the alternative scene and had this sort of shared paradigm that he'd imagined living in his, utopian community with. But suddenly he said, I had this extraordinary experience of realizing that I'm in a utopian community. I'm living in community now with the little Italian man down the street who's 73. Basically, the whole world seemed to revolve around his tomatoes. And, he started to share these worlds of these people and it was happening right now, so that this thing that he'd been yearning for was actually an illusion that was taking him away from actually letting it come alive now and finding its expression in the moment. So for a lot of work I do with people is around destroying their futures
Cool. So
until their futures become current right now, because our futures, that hope, that dream can actually be a way of fantasizing to take me out of the now, to take me out of the pain and the suffering and the beauty of now, and hope for something. One day I'm going to get to that. But actually what that does is it splits our consciousness, takes us out of the wild, glorious, not of this moment,
So is it, the answer essentially is a deepening of that connection. So what does that look like? It looks like a deeper and a more full and a more direct experience of the moment and the present and what wants to come through right now.
Deepening into the essence, the life force, and then seeing what happens, and then deepening into the essence, allowing it to move more fully through me, and then seeing what happens.
And so speak to your goals and what you want to create from that place.
On a more practical level, the thing that most excites me at the moment is the Warrior of Love program, which is a year-long program I've been running for a couple of years. And it's 4 retreats a year, and we have a community of people who come together to really practice this. So if people do the work, do the 6-week program, or do any of the Living as Essence work with me and go, this is this is what I've been wanting. I want to live as this current of the beloved in all areas of my life. I want to love my partner, not as this person trying to work out how to love and love them, but to actually just become a vessel and witness the glory of love, loving them, raising kids, whatever. So if people connect with that path and connect with the way I work, there's this program that's been running for just over 2 years now, where people can really go deep and form a community, and we go away for a beach house for once every 3 months and live together and breathe together and do the work, if you can use the word work, together. And so that's probably the arrow tip of my work at the moment, is that I run retreats and 6-week programs and write books and all of that, but in many ways that providing a really solid framework for people who want to go deep over a long period of time.
Cool. And how many people do you get down to the beach house?
So this one, there's 15 currently in the Warriors of Love program.
Nice.
And it sort of opens and closes, and so it goes up or down or whatever, but it's
cool.
Yeah,
sounds like fun.
It's like the real core, the backbone of the Essence School these days.
Awesome. And where, other than life itself, like the experiences that you've had, are there any kind of, I don't know, mentors, any people who have helped you along your path that you would really like to just mention now, or that come to mind as I ask you the question?
Yeah, wow. Yes. I'm just looking at the trees out my window and I feel like they're going, me, it's me. I've done a podcast, a series where I just went and interviewed my greatest teachers, and I just sat with the ocean or sat with a waterfall or a tree and just went, hey, this dude's been teaching me for years. So that's the non-human answer. Like you said, life, death. Death has been an incredible teacher for me. My wife's death, and has showed me what death really is in a way I never could have ever got from a book, and the beauty of it.
So that essentially showed you how to emulate that as well. That gave you the process of actually being able to do that moment to moment.
It did. It really, it's like she gave her death to me, and I live with her death every day. And the truth of death not being what we think it is, but actually being the part of life that actually the great cleanser that purifies and cleanses and strips back the bullshit and allows the truth to emerge again.
And can you speak to that? Can you speak to that in terms of people who have had death close to them, around them, and it really fucks them up, or not just death, but loss of identity, or loss of skills, loss of partners, so on and so forth? What can you speak to about that?
It's a beautiful question, brother. Because it's true that life breaks us, and I've had the privilege of having an incredible community of people and teachers and support to be able to break and move through that breaking and be born again, without any context to the word born again. And I feel incredibly grateful for that privilege from my men's groups that held me when wife died, and took me down the river and sung songs and carried me into the river, and like that, the community of that, and friends and family who helped raise my boy, and I couldn't have the privilege of talking about this like it's a privilege now without that. And so in terms of what if someone's listening to this who's at a point either now or carries that brokenness in them, I would just really offer the words that breaking can be beautiful. And that I would love to believe in a culture that rather than trying to medicate or pull people away from the edge of breaking, we can create enough love and support to actually let people break, because actually the greatest terror in breaking is the leading up to the edge of it. When we break, and there's that moment when we break where we feel like we become everything we were trying to get away from. So in my case, there was a sense of being a failure and a loser as a man and as a teacher and as a father. It was like a husband. I just failed at it all, and so there was this excruciating pain when I broke into that. But quite quickly that passed, and I realized, oh, well, that's not the whole truth. Like, oh yeah, I've failed, but I'm also still here and I can have another go. And so and often same too, just with pure feeling, if there's a feeling of dread or loss or grief, if I can actually show up to it and, do that breath with it, breathe it in and breathe it out and let it move through me fully, that these things that seem horrendous and like they're going to be with us forever and we'll never get free of them can actually move. They're like initiations, and when they can fully move through us, they actually open us to new life and to new wisdom and stuff that we couldn't imagine, And so, yeah, that's my invitation to someone in that place, is to learn to break, practice breaking and get support, reach out and get, especially I do a lot of work with men, or I have done a lot of work with men, and a lot of them are not very good at that moment of reaching out and going, can I break in your arms, to a friend or a therapist or whatever? Can I actually be a complete, either lost in emotion or whatever each of our unique fear is in that breaking. But if we can, it's often life comes, new life births in ways we couldn't have imagined, and I've helped a lot of people through that, and it's an honor to witness that. The beauty that comes, we're not healing anything, understanding anything, there's just allowing the feeling to move, allowing life to move through us. Loss, grief, betrayal, if we can actually allow them to move through us, then something else can happen, something miraculous that seems like painful and seems terrible, but if once it fully moves through us, there's a wisdom there, or there's a grace there, or there's a tenderness that's birthed from that.
And is that something that you would recommend people to invite alone, like do that alone? Like if they're like, oh, I could never do that with someone, or is that definitely doing it alone might be practice for doing it with someone else, or calling in the support, being okay with calling in the supports a more easeful way or gentle way of doing that? Or what would you recommend around that?
Oh, look, in the end, it's each person is so unique that I'm not much of a recommender in terms of this is the way, because for someone actually surrendering support and really going on their own journey with it might be exquisitely perfect for them. But overall, if I had to say, what's your advice? Which is always a bit funny, the notion of advice, but definitely having support, having the right support, having people that we can go to. And that's that role of therapist or, counselor, or, for me, I think of them more as like elder in the community. In our culture, we call them counselor or therapist, and we think, oh, they're here to fix me or whatever. But the deeper role, the more shamanic or the more soulful role at the back of that is this elder that you would have, that you go to, and they bring their wisdom and their ability to have seen this in 50 other people before and hold it, and you move through it. And, there was this moment when those men I was talking about were holding me in the river, and I was crying, and they were singing, and they were crying with me. And I just felt this like grief move through me like a volcano or a train or something. And I started crying again. And this time I wasn't crying for the grief, but I was crying for the privilege that I had in that moment to have others be able to move through this energy of grief with me, and that I wasn't alone in that grief. And I remember feeling like I'm going to be okay because I've got this for the rest of my life. I'm not holding this by myself. And that when we can take that to a friend or to a counselor or an elder or whatever, and we can honestly share that, and it can move through us, and another can hold that place for us, something miraculous happens, and it's a real place for eldership and wisdomship, true leadership in our community. And I think we all benefit from that level of holding, whether it's specifically like we're talking about now, dealing with the dark, the broken, but also so too when we've got dreams and visions, and we can come and bring that through our body and have someone witness and say yes to that. That sense of community of support is an integral part, I think, to really being able to live a full life. Like a tree by itself is it actually just dies. It's part of, there's so many other organisms helping its existence happen, from other trees to the worms in the soil breaking it down to the blah blah blah. I don't even know what's going on, but clearly there's a whole interconnected life, and that part of the human condition can be to disconnect ourselves, to feel so isolated from that web of life that we believe this notion of it's just me, I'm the only one who's this fucked up, or I'm the only one. And yet actually when we do come into presence with others, we go, oh my God, they're all stuffed up like me, and they're actually worse than me, and it's just something about it becomes more normal, and we can then let it move through us and become part of the current of life again, rather than rigid and frozen. And
Excellent. And this concept, you said you were grateful for like the men's groups and the support that you've had, and is that something that yeah, like how did you find men's groups? How did you find the support? Did you just like, because I don't imagine if there was internet at the times when this was happening, or like how did you create these yourselves? Like what was the process like of finding these spaces?
Yeah, another great question, because I can really, I love the notion if someone's listening to this could support them to do that, because men's groups have been an integral part of mine and many men's lives. Yeah, how did it? I was lucky enough to have men in my life that were into that sort of thing. I think my first men's group was a man. A good friend of mine said, "I'm going to run a men's group," and he'd had experience before, and so he called it. And a bunch of us men, some who knew each other, some who didn't, came together and just started on a journey. And we met every fortnight for 4 years or something.
Wow.
So and those group of men that helped me through the loss of my wife, and they'd come around to my house when she was sick, and I couldn't leave my house. They'd move the circle to my place, and I'd come and go, care for her, come to the circle, and
so you've started your own men's groups as well?
I had people. Yeah, I have. I've ran men's work, men's retreats, and I've also was one of the sort of core people in growing the Menergy Men's Gathering, which is a Victorian, Australia based men's gathering, the largest men's gathering in Australia now. So we had 220 men a couple of years ago. It happens every year, and it's an incredible gathering of men from all walks of life, from 90 something to young, and all stories and cultures and traditions. And if you're in Australia, there's quite an extraordinary collection of them. There's Men's Wellbeing, which is sort of the founding organisation based out of Queensland, who run men's gatherings. It's a great way to do it. They also, if Men's Wellbeing, if you're in Australia, Men's Wellbeing is a place to contact to find out that connection to men's work. But mostly, if you just, Facebook's amazing like that you can just put out and go, hey, I'd like to join a men's group. Does someone know? And most of us have got, if not direct connection, the next stage out, and the next stage out, there'll be someone who knows, or talk to a friend you know is into that. And, there are contacts there, or just search men's groups in my area, or, contact that one friend, even if it's a woman friend who is into that sort of thing. She might have mentioned something, go to her and say, hey, do you know? And she can then put out to her networks, or, if you want it, you'll find it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Cool. I think we've got to wrap up because we're running out of time, but thank you so much for your time, Arion. Definitely looking forward to continuing and deepening the conversation going forward.
Yeah, I love it, brothers. No, it's great to just drop in and be with you, and just see if there's anything left for me to say. No, just that the beauty of stopping is what I've got. I'm just listening to what I've received from being with you, and just the beauty of stopping and finding that what we thought we had to do all this effort for is actually just here. Is so. It's like I just want to just keep talking and sharing and being that for the rest of my life, because it's a miracle. When I watch people get it, it's just, effort just blocks the beauty of life, that's here now. So thank you. It's really great to chat, and we'll do it again.
Absolute pleasure. Have an amazing time, amazing future nows, then we'll definitely tune in soon.
Sweet. I'm going for a swim in the river with my boy.
Beautiful.
Okay, thanks, mate.
Enjoy. Take care.